Hello everybody, Lynn Joffe here from Solid Gold Storytime, and today it is my absolute pleasure to speak to Dr. Nokuthula Mazibuko Msimang, who has read her book, Soweto Tea Party, on the Solid Gold Storytime platform. Greetings, Nokuthula. It's fantastic to see you.
Hi, Lynn. Thank you so much for inviting me to your wonderful podcast.
Well, today we are going to speak about you. And I've had to look you up. I'm overwhelmed. Academic, broadcaster, story writer. There are so many things that you are. There's so many degrees that you have. You know, you're a slasher, it almost seems. How do you present yourself? What do you call yourself?
Primarily, I'm a writer and I'm a researcher. I'm a mother. I'm a wife. Writing is the one sort of gig that I've done for the longest time.
Superpower.
Well, that's my superpower. And as you know, as a writer, to make a living, you have to teach. So I've worked in media. I've worked for the BBC. I worked for the SABC. I was the head of SABC Children for a long time, which I enjoyed. But I've always written, and that's my happy space.
Okay, so this story, Soweto Tea Party, is actually directed. It's a story for very young children.
Yeah.
So my first sort of curious question is there a difference in writing for children, writing for YA, which I know you've done, academic writing, public speaking? How do you get into the child space, and what attracts you to write for little kids?
I love writing for children, because you get to be a child. And I do believe that I kind of reached the age of 10 and decided I'm not growing any further. You do have to reach into your inner child when you write for children. You write for children as well, Lynn. So, children are an honest audience. If you bore them, they will let you know. So, whenever I do, writers' workshops and talk about writing for children, that's what I always say, that, look, just whatever you do, don't bore the children.
I've always believed I'm a 6-year-old in the body of a much older woman, so that you're actually speaking with them, not down to them.
Yeah.
So you actually have to get into the child mind.
Yeah.
So what inspired you to write this particular story?
Well, Soweto Tea Party is autobiographical. I grew up in Soweto, and my father was a freedom fighter under house arrest in the 70s. He stayed in the house. People were not allowed to come and visit us. But what I remember from those years is that, our house was a very joyful space, primarily because my father and all of us in our family, we love music and we love to dance, So I always remember there was, Miriam Makeba, Letambulu, Hugh Masekela, Fela Kuti, just wafting around the house, and dancing. So in as much as it was obviously a bit of a complicated situation, but Dad was home,
The
upside of it was that Dad was around,
So your parents actually encouraged you, despite everything that was going around in deep apartheid, a joyful home.
A joyful home, but also the power of the imagination. So even though it was during apartheid and there was lockdown and people were being imprisoned, there was always a sense that, look, freedom is coming and Madiba is going to come out of prison. That was the thing that, we're not allowed to see pictures of Nelson Mandela, and you're not allowed to speak Nelson Mandela's name or play Miriam Makeba's music or Hugh Masekela's music, But we did. But also in our imagination, we were free. So we were never kind of cowed or shrunk by the circumstances. That was very important for my parents to say, don't allow other people to define who you are. You are God's masterpiece, and you need to move in the world like God's masterpiece. So I've always had that, and music being a very transformative force in our home, a healing force in our home, was incredible, And of course, Soweto, there was music everywhere in Soweto. And Soweto people, even though during those days, we were separated, but Soweto has always been a cosmopolitan space. And that's why I think even now, it's a space where people came to Soweto. Nelson Mandela's house was in Soweto, so we knew that Madiba's house is up the road. All the freedom fighters, Walter Sisulu, everybody's homes, So it's always been that place that has everybody and that welcomes everybody. So I grew up very much with that sense of belonging to a bigger space than our four-roomed house.
And why do you think it's important, or what inspired you to bring, we're not young women anymore, we're talking about the 70s, and now children, 40, 50 years later, who may not even know who these people are? Was it important for you to convey this to the new generation?
It's important for for us to celebrate our heroes. The whole world celebrates Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, because what he did is so, so difficult, Lynn. For somebody who was in his situation to come out and say, listen, let's reset our mindset, who we are, and let's teach the world to love. Let's teach the world peace. I think that is so, so awesome. For me, we are, I think we are God's favorites in South Africa, to have been gifted a Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. And we really should kind of take that and run with it and say to the world, listen, this is who we are. We have, been to spaces that are tricky, complicated, and we came out of it not strangling each other. We came out of it not bashing each other. South Africa has the whole world in this one space. And we don't have a war. We don't have a war in South Africa. Even with the entire world, all the world's cultures, all the world's politics, and we can say, fine, you belong to that political party. Fine, you come from that culture, but it's okay.
In a sense, because this is for little children who don't necessarily have that large cognition. They have joy, they have beauty, which is how the father and daughter interact. So would you almost say that you've kind of focused the political message into a story? Was that an intention? Was it a deliberate, conscious intention to bring, in a sense, a political message to little kids?
It's a historical message. It's a historical message because history grounds you and kind of tells you who you are and gives you a sense of who you want to be. So I think it's important for us to know who we are, to be honest about who we are and who we want to become. Although it's a complicated story, but it's a story that we can be proud of. It sounds strange to put it in those terms, but I love history and I think it's a great teacher.
So in a sense, it's a legacy that you're continuing to offer children, because obviously children under the age of 5 can't read for themselves. So the parents are also kind of learning while they're reading to their children, would you say?
It's our history, it's our heritage, and it is our legacy. It is, the way that we understand ourselves through story and how we are becoming through story.
Why do you think it's so important that little children, South African children, have got books to read in their mother tongue? And what was your motivation to have this book in isiZulu as well as in English?
isiZulu, which is my mother tongue, is a beautiful language. It is so poetic. It is so emotional. I even see it now with the kids who are singing the popular music, amapiano in isiZulu. That's why it resonates all over the world. Because when you listen to it, even if you don't understand it, you can feel the rhythm, you can feel the poetry, you can feel the color of isiZulu. And of course, in the 70s when we grew up, I listened only to Radio Zulu because we had no television. So that is the language in which I dream. But also the 11 official languages. Again, it's another space that we can celebrate as South Africans because, it gives us that edge that we do have all these languages so that when somebody visits South Africa, they can hear.
But what about the little children? What about the kids themselves in South Africa? Why is it important for young South African children to read and hear their own language?
Multilingualism makes you smarter. Just cognitively, it makes your brain more agile if you can code switch and move between languages, So if you can speak 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 languages, the meaning in those worlds, in those languages is different. There's certain information, for example, which I, struggle to convey in English. You were saying when I was reading Soweto Tea Party that it was more dramatic. It was more animated in isiZulu, because I understand it differently also when I read it in isiZulu. It
comes to a different depth.
Then the meaning changes slightly.
But you wrote this in English, right?
I wrote it in English. I'm starting now to originate more and more in isiZulu. It was originally written in English.
So whenever I go to a bookshop now, I ask about mother tongue children's books, and they are as rare as hen's teeth. And I want to know what you think about the fact that we have 11 languages.
Yeah.
English is obviously the universal language. Afrikaans has had its culture kind of preserved. There are Afrikaans children's books around. From my vast experience in working on production in mother tongue, it seems that parents want their children to learn English. So if they're buying books, they might be buying the books in English and not in the mother tongue. What is your cultural opinion, not your business brain? Do you think that families and parents and caregivers of little kids are kind of directing their children towards English more than mother tongue? Do you think that there needs to be a cultural evolution? Because, if you're working, you're leaving at 4 a.m, you're coming back at 9 at night, you're absolutely exhausted. The last thing you want to do is read a bedtime story. So do you think it's maybe a cultural thing that English is being read to their children? Or maybe that they're not familiar enough with their own mother tongue to read in mother tongue?
My honest feeling, having done, just dipstick research, when I go around reading stories, there are a lot of parents that want their children to speak mother tongue and to read in mother tongue. I honestly don't believe it's true that people don't want to read or buy books in mother tongue. Whenever I'm out reading, I have parents coming to me and saying, Nokuthula, where do we get your books? Where can we find books in isiZulu? So I think there is a market for isiZulu books. Yes, it's true, of course, because, English is the language of commerce. Parents want their children to know English, to read English. But I think parents also want their children to know their mother tongue and to read in their mother tongue.
So build it and they will come. Which then brings us to your publisher, New Africa Books. Yeah. Tell me, I actually want to know about the creative process. Did the story occur to you, you wrote it and then found a publisher, or did a publisher come to you and say, we need a story about a Soweto tea party? What was your writing process with this, and how did it lead you to your publisher?
I've been with the same publisher, New Africa Books, who they publish my children's books since 2003, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, so they actually started publishing my books for teenagers. So A Mozambican Summer and In the Fast Lane. Yeah.
How did you find them in 2003? How did that happen?
Oh, gosh, that's a whole other story.
Okay.
I was studying in Cape Town. I did in the early 90s. I was co-editor of a poetry journal titled English Alive, I think, with my good friend Robin Malan.
Robin Malan?
Robin Malan, yeah.
The Suid-Afrikaanse. Oh, he was brilliant.
So Robin and I met in Cape Town, became firm friends, and he was editing the Sia Groover series for teenagers. So I was one of the writers that he invited to contribute a novella. I worked on 2 novellas with Robin. So, I was already in the New Africa Books stable. In 2001, my publisher, Dušanka Stojaković, said to me, I was just talking to her about, my life, and as one does, we use our editors and publishers as therapists. She said, but Nox, that sounds like a fascinating story. Why don't you write about it? So that's how Soweto Tea Party was born.
But that's a beautiful thing, because actually then there's a relationship with your publisher that actually also inspires you to write new books rather than throwing them into a black hole or pitch into darkness.
Well, that's the best kind of relationship, I believe, to have with your publisher, because it is a fine line, right? When you are, it's kind of like a family, when you belong to a particular publishing house. She is the one who said, why don't you write about your childhood? The trick is to write in a way that is joyful, because when you're writing for very young children, I believe that, you have to, even though you are kind of centering them in their history and heritage, when you finish reading the book, there has to be a sense of joy. And that's why all of my picture books have music in them, because children love to sing and clap and have fun when you're reading to them.
Did your publisher suggest that you do mother tongue versions, or was that your insistence?
I think we were on the same page about that, because New Africa Books, they translate, I think, all of their publications. So we were always on the same page. Even with my teen books, A Mozambican Summer is in isiXhosa, isiZulu, and Sesotho, I think. So we're on the same page. So I can't remember, it's like a chicken and egg situation.
In every story, be for adults, children, academic paper, there's what I call a core concept, which we use in advertising to say, what is the positioning statement, or what is the main brand message?
Yeah.
If you have a message within the book, which is really kind of embedded in the story, what would you describe it as being?
I would say, quite simply, love conquers all. because there is love in the story, there is music in the story. But most of my books, actually, whether there is conflict or whatever for the adults, like The Daughters of Nandi is my novel for adults. Even though it is set at a time and place in KwaZulu when there was a lot of conflict, but at the end really is about the power of love to transform lives and how love can bring people together.
That's very interesting because some authors speak about writing the very same story over and over and over again because their theme is so universal to them. So in a sense, your whole life, your whole trajectory of everything you do, in a sense, has that as your core message, would you say?
I would say so. Obviously, with many books, there is one or two or three themes, but I do think that the golden thread is the message of love. Another theme that I do love is also peace and conflict resolution. That is also, another shade of love.
Aspects of love.
Aspects of love.
That's beautiful.
Aspects of love, because it is a powerful emotion.
What is the reaction of children when you read to them, and do they come out with the sense of love and joy?
They do. And children also can see through a lot of stuff. And children kind of key in to what it's all about and where it's at. So it's actually my favorite thing to have readings and, storytelling sessions.
Do you ask them for questions? What are the questions that they ask you about your book?
They remix my book. They edit
That's
my
lovely.
book. They say, Beyonce has come to the Soweto Tea Party. Says, my dad is coming to the Soweto Tea Party, so that's the wonder and joy of children. And I'm actually considering another edition where I do change it.
Will you change Miriam Makeba into Beyonce?
Yes. Or maybe they do a collabo.
Did you meet all of the people that you mentioned in your book?
Yes, I did.
Wow.
Yes, I did.
Did you meet Nadine Gordimer?
I did.
I believe she cooked for you at some point.
That's Miriam Makeba.
Oh,
Miriam
okay.
Makeba, yes.
Miriam
Makeba was
Miriam.
a good friend of my parents. So, yes. So I knew Miriam Makeba. I was very lucky to have known her.
But you didn't know they were famous. They were just friends of your parents.
Well, I met them as an adult because, it was...
The return.
The
Maibuye.
when they came back. And Umama Nadine as well. So, yeah, she was a...
Were you starstruck at all?
Of course. Of course.
Like I am now. How can you not?
Yes.
So here you are on this podcast. You have a printed book, which is available in bookstores everywhere in English and isiZulu. And now we are doing, and we have done, you reading your own story for a podcast, which is an audio podcast for small children. Do you think that this has value as a precursor to literacy? Can children listen to a book? What's your feeling about all that?
Storytelling is the foundation of literacy. So absolutely, from when babies are born.
Before they're born.
They
listen in the womb.
They listen in the womb. So, songs, stories.
Sound of the mother's voice.
The sound of the mother's voice, and when they then look at the written word and making the connection between what they're hearing and what they're reading, just cognitively, is a big part of children's development. Listening is a skill that we carry throughout our lives as we are learning, as we are living. So yes, that link between oral and the skill of being able to listen, being able to read, being able to write, all of those are interconnected.
So why is storytelling such a big deal?
It's who we are. It's who we are. We tell stories to each other.
That's
how we know each other. That's how we live with each other. It's through stories. That's how we become. That's what makes us human, is our stories.
Salman Rushdie says, man, or let's say humankind, is the storytelling animal.
Yeah.
We are hardwired. The Bible, nobody remembers the Leviticus rules. We all know the stories of Cain and Abel and the New Testament. Yeah. So actually storytelling is a sense fundamentally human condition.
Yeah, stories is who we are.
Dr. Nokuthula, Mazibuko, Msimang, thank you so much for your energy, for your love of reading, your love of people, your love of stories. You've inspired me again. I'm going right back to my desk to write another story in English. And let's hope that we can collaborate and move forward with the love of storytelling and the love of South African children. Thank you.
Lynn, thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
You've been listening to another Solid Gold podcast featuring Dr. Nokuthula Mazibuko Msimang, who has read her story, Soweto Tea Party, in English and in isiZulu on Solid Gold Storytime. Thank you for listening.